If you're a man over 60 and you've been told it's normal to wake up 3 or 4 times a night just to urinate, I'm here to tell you that is a lie. It is not normal, and it is not harmless. The real reason it's happening might shock you because there's one simple habit, something you do every single day without even thinking, that is quietly inflaming your prostate, disrupting your sleep, and slowly eroding your quality of life. Yet, no one is warning you, not your friends, not your family, and sadly, not even your doctor. I'm a physician and men's health specialist with over 30 years of experience treating prostate problems, erectile dysfunction, low testosterone, and everything that affects a man's vitality. I've helped thousands of men in their 60 seconds, 70 seconds, and even 80 seconds reclaim their strength, confidence, and independence. Today, I'm going to help you see that most men think their prostate gets bigger just because they're getting older, but that's only half the truth. What if I told you that your age isn't the main problem? This one overlooked daily behavior is triggering a silent inflammation that causes urgency, dribbling, and all those frustrating late-night bathroom trips. Stay with me because in the next few minutes, I'll reveal what that habit is, why it's so dangerous, and how to stop it naturally without medication or surgery. I'll also show you a 15-second bedtime ritual my patients use to sleep through the night and finally feel like themselves again. Before we begin, if you haven't subscribed yet, I encourage you to hit that button and turn on the bell so you never miss another prostate health tip made specifically for men over 60. If this message speaks to you, type 1 in the comments. If not, type 0 so I know how to better serve you. Let's begin with the first hidden habit, one that most men think is helping their prostate when, in reality, it's making things worse. If you've ever cut back on drinking water at night to avoid waking up, you need to hear the truth behind this. This is a dangerous misunderstanding. Habit number 10 is cutting back on water to avoid nighttime urination. I can't tell you how many times I've had men in their 60 seconds, 70 seconds, and even early 80 seconds sit in my office and proudly tell me they've started drinking less water in the evening, so they won't have to get up and use the bathroom at night. Every time, I gently shake my head and say, I know you mean well, but that habit may actually be making your symptoms worse. It sounds logical, right? Less water means less urine and fewer trips to the bathroom. But here's the part no one tells you. When you cut back on water too much, especially later in the day, your urine becomes more concentrated. It turns darker, more acidic, and more irritating to your bladder. That irritation creates pressure, which pushes against your already sensitive prostate. The result is that you may actually feel the need to urinate more frequently, not less. When the bladder is constantly exposed to concentrated urine, it becomes agitated and overactive, sending premature signals to empty even when it's only half full. That's exactly why so many men wake up at 1 a.m., then 3 a.m., then 5 a.m., rushing to the bathroom with urgency, only to pass a small trickle. It's frustrating, it's exhausting, and it slowly chips away at your confidence and quality of life. I've had patients nearly in tears, telling me they just want to experience one full night of sleep again. I understand, I truly do, but the answer isn't to deprive your body of water. In fact, dehydration is one of the most overlooked triggers of prostate inflammation. Without enough water, your body can't flush out toxins, your tissues swell, and healing slows to a crawl. So, what should you do? It's simple, really. Hydrate consistently throughout the day. Don't wait until you're thirsty. That means you're already behind. Instead, sip small amounts regularly from morning until early evening. Aim for light, clear urine. That's your body's way of saying we're in balance. And if you're worried about drinking too close to bedtime, just taper off water about 90 minutes before sleep. But don't stop altogether. Water isn't the enemy. It's your ally. It's the most natural, accessible tool you have to calm the bladder, reduce prostate pressure, and sleep through the night peacefully. Now, you might be wondering if cutting back on water makes things worse. What about sitting for long periods of time? Could that quiet afternoon on the recliner actually be fueling your prostate problems too? Let's take a closer look. Habit number 9. Sitting for long periods without movement. I remember one of my patients, a retired school principal named Frank. He told me he spent most of his day sitting, watching TV, reading the newspaper, or working on puzzles at the kitchen table. "Doc," he said with a chuckle, "I earned this rest." And he had. But what Frank didn't realize, what most men don't realize, is that too much sitting, especially as we age, quietly works against our prostate health. Here's what happens. When you sit for long periods, especially without standing or stretching, you place constant low-level pressure on your pelvic region. That pressure reduces blood flow to the prostate, and when blood flow slows, inflammation builds. The body can't deliver nutrients as efficiently, and it can't carry waste away. The tissues around your prostate start to swell, and you may begin to notice more urgency, a weaker stream, or even discomfort when you sit. It doesn't happen overnight, and that's what makes it so dangerous. It creeps in slowly. A few bathroom trips here, a restless night there, a growing feeling that something just isn't right. I've seen it so many times. Men who feel trapped in their chairs and then become trapped in a cycle of worsening symptoms. The truth is, our bodies were designed to move. Movement isn't just about fitness or losing weight. It's about circulation. It's about energy. And for men over 60, it's one of the most powerful ways to protect the prostate. The good news is you don't need a gym, membership, or a fancy routine. One simple rule can make all the difference. Every 30 minutes, stand up. That's it. Just stand, stretch your arms, take a few steps, look out the window, and set a gentle reminder if you need to. These micro movements release pressure, restore blood flow, and signal to your body that it's still active, still vital, still alive. Frank took that advice to heart. He set a timer and started moving every half hour. Within 2 weeks, he was sleeping better. Within a month, he said he felt lighter, more energized, and more in control. So if you're spending long hours sitting, whether it's watching sports, reading, or even just relaxing, remember that a still body invites silent problems, while a moving body invites healing. And speaking of hidden troublemakers, there's another one that often sneaks into your routine, your morning coffee. Could that innocent cup be irritating your prostate more than you think? Let's dive in. Habit number 8. Overconsumption of caffeine. I'll be honest with you, this one hits close to home. I love the smell of fresh coffee in the morning. That first warm sip can feel like a small gift. For many of the men I see, especially those who are retired and finally enjoying slow, quiet mornings, that daily cup of coffee becomes almost sacred. But here's what I've learned. After decades of treating prostate issues, too much caffeine, even from something as familiar and comforting as coffee or tea, can quietly wreak havoc on your bladder and your prostate. Caffeine is a stimulant. It doesn't just wake up your brain, it wakes up your entire urinary system. It increases urine production and stimulates the bladder muscles, often leading to more frequent urges to go. For a healthy young man, this might be a minor inconvenience. But for someone over 60, whose prostate may already be slightly enlarged, that extra stimulation can push things over the edge. You may find yourself rushing to the bathroom more often, especially in the late morning or afternoon. Or maybe you feel like you're never quite emptying fully. That lingering pressure, the urgency, and the occasional dribble may all be tied to how much caffeine you're consuming. One of my patients, Gary, had been drinking coffee in the morning, iced tea in the afternoon, and sometimes a cola in the evening. He never thought twice about it. When I asked him to cut back and switch to herbal or decaf alternatives after his morning coffee, he hesitated, saying, "Doc, I've been drinking this stuff for years." I nodded and said, "That may be exactly why it's time to change." Within 10 days, he noticed he wasn't waking up as much at night. His stream felt stronger, his confidence returned, and to his surprise, he didn't miss the caffeine as much as he thought he would. Now, I'm not saying you have to give it up entirely. I wouldn't ask you to, but moderation matters. That single cup in the morning, enjoy it, but consider stopping there. Your prostate and your sleep might thank you. And while we're on the topic of what we put in our bodies, there's another category of food that's even more disruptive to your hormones and prostate than caffeine, and chances are it's on your plate more often than you realize. Let's talk about that next. Habit number 7. Eating processed and spicy foods regularly. I had a patient named Bill who is 68 years old, and he came to me frustrated. He said, "Doc, I've cut back on soda. I'm trying to walk more, but I'm still waking up at night to pee, and it's driving me crazy. I asked him to walk me through his daily diet. He paused, then laughed, saying, "Well, breakfast is usually bacon and eggs. Lunch might be a sandwich with deli meat. And I can't give up my spicy chili at dinner." That's when the real conversation began. You see, what many men don't realize is that food isn't just fuel. It's also information. Everything you eat sends a message to your body, and highly processed foods like bacon, sausages, frozen meals, and even packaged snacks are sending the wrong message to your prostate. These foods are loaded with chemicals, unhealthy fats, and artificial preservatives that increase inflammation throughout the body. When your prostate is already sensitive, these inflammatory signals make things worse. But it's not just processed foods. Spicy foods, especially hot peppers, chili powders, and sauces, can directly irritate the bladder and pelvic nerves. When those nerves are overstimulated, it can feel like your bladder is full even when it's not. You may find yourself going more often with less control and more discomfort. The real issue, though, is what these foods do to your hormones. Many processed meals contain trans fats and added sugars that raise estrogen and lower testosterone levels. That hormonal imbalance is a proven driver of prostate growth. So, while the connection might not be obvious, your plate could be making your symptoms worse day after day. When Bill swapped his usual meals for more whole foods like grilled chicken, leafy greens, avocado, berries, and a handful of walnuts, he didn't just feel better physically. He told me, "I feel more like myself, clearer, stronger, more in control." That's the power of eating to heal instead of eating out of habit. You don't need to be perfect, but you do need to be mindful. Start with one change. Cook more at home and add one anti-inflammatory food per day. Over time, your body will respond, your prostate will calm, and you'll sleep more soundly. But even with the perfect diet, there's one daily behavior that men ignore all the time, something they think is harmless. But it's like a slow-motion earthquake for the prostate. Let's uncover that next. Habit number 6. Holding your urine for too long. It always surprises me how many men brush this off as no big deal. "I was stuck in traffic," or "the game was on," "I didn't want to miss the second half," or "I figured I could wait until the next rest stop." I get it. Life is busy. But as a doctor who has spent over 3 decades treating men's health issues, I can tell you this seemingly small habit of holding in your urine is one of the most underestimated causes of prostate trouble I see. Let me explain what's really happening. Every time you resist the urge to go, your bladder stretches a bit beyond what it should. It's like blowing up a balloon just a little too much, over and over. That constant stretching creates downward pressure directly onto your prostate, and your prostate, especially after age 60, isn't built to handle that kind of pressure repeatedly. Over time, that pressure irritates the delicate tissues, causes swelling, and can even create tiny injuries to the nerves and muscles that help you urinate properly. That's why men who make a habit of holding it often end up struggling with a weak stream, that incomplete feeling after going, or even increased frequency later on. It's the body's way of sounding the alarm. And there's more. When you delay urination too often, your bladder may not empty completely, leaving behind small amounts of urine. That stagnant urine becomes a breeding ground for bacteria, leading to infections, which only further inflame the prostate and irritate the bladder. I remember one gentleman, Tom, a retired firefighter. He told me he had trained himself to ignore the urge for years during long shifts in emergencies. It was a badge of discipline. But now, at 67, he was waking up 5 times a night, constantly uncomfortable and frustrated. When I explained the connection, he paused, looked down, and said, "I wish someone had told me this sooner." So, here's what I tell every man now. When your body says go, go. Don't wait. Don't hold it. Your bladder and prostate are a team. When one suffers, the other does too. Listening to your body isn't weakness. It's wisdom. And while we're on the topic of daily damage, there's one habit that's even more destructive than holding your urine. It affects your lungs, your blood, and your prostate all at once. And even if you don't do it yourself, just being near it could be putting your health at risk. Let's talk about that next. Habit number 5. smoking, or even being around smoke. I'll never forget a man named Walter who came into my office a few years ago. He was 72 years old, proud, strong-willed, and had worked in construction for most of his life. He looked me in the eye and said, "Doc, I quit smoking 10 years ago, but my prostate's still giving me hell." When I asked if he was ever around other smokers, he paused and nodded. "Every Friday night poker game, my buddies light up like it's 1,975. What Walter didn't realize is that the prostate is incredibly sensitive to environmental toxins and cigarette smoke. Whether you're inhaling it yourself or just breathing it in secondhand, is one of the most damaging exposures you can face. Each cigarette releases thousands of chemicals, many of which restrict blood flow, decrease oxygen levels, and trigger chronic inflammation throughout the body, including the prostate. Over time, these chemicals interfere with the gland's ability to heal and regenerate. Blood vessels that feed the prostate begin to narrow, tissues become stiff, and immune cells rush in not to help, but to contain the constant assault, keeping the body in a state of low-grade inflammation. If you're over 60, your ability to detox from that damage naturally has already slowed, which means even occasional smoke exposure can significantly set back your prostate health. What's more alarming is that long-term exposure to cigarette smoke doesn't just worsen benign prostate enlargement, it can increase your risk of developing more serious conditions, including prostate cancer. This isn't meant to scare you. It's meant to wake you up, because it's never too late to make a change. If you're a smoker, please hear this with compassion. Quitting is hard, but it's also the single greatest gift you can give your prostate, your heart, and your future. Help is out there: medications, support groups, behavioral therapy, and if you've already quit, that's something to be proud of. But stay alert, avoid secondhand smoke as much as you possibly can. Your health is still worth protecting. He started going to the poker games in person and switched to hosting them at his house. Smoke-free. Within weeks, his sleep improved, his nighttime urgency eased, his energy returned. He told me it felt like someone had turned down the volume on his discomfort. But you might be surprised to know that one of the most dangerous habits of all isn't about what you breathe in, it's about what you ignore. Because too many men treat their bodies worse than their cars, and that's where we're headed. Next, habit number 4, skipping yearly prostate checkups. Not long ago, I sat across from a man named Henry. He was 66, well-dressed, polite, and clearly uncomfortable. He had been dealing with frequent urination, low energy, and a lingering ache in his lower abdomen for over a year. But this was his first time seeing a urologist. When I asked him why he waited so long, he shrugged and said, "I didn't want to know." Henry isn't alone. A lot of men strong, intelligent, hardworking, men often avoid doctor visits until they can't ignore the symptoms anymore. And I get it. There's fear, there's pride, and sometimes there's embarrassment. But here's what I'd always say: you take your car in for an Anna Lavins oil change every few months, not because it's broken, but to keep it from breaking. Why should your body deserve any less care? The prostate is a tricky organ. When it starts to swell or act up, it often does so quietly. No pain, no obvious warning. Lights, just subtle changes. A slightly weaker stream, an extra trip to the bathroom, a restless night. By the time it becomes obvious, the problem may already be advanced. But when caught early, many prostate issues, whether it's benign enlargement or even early cancer, can be managed with simple lifestyle changes and non-invasive treatments. That's why annual checkups are so important. A basic physical exam, a PSA, blood test, and yes, sometimes a digital rectal exam can provide life-saving information. These tools aren't about diagnosing disease. They're about preserving health, giving you the chance to stay ahead of problems, not take them down later when they've grown too big to ignore. I told Henry exactly that. We ran a few simple tests, and fortunately, we caught his issue early. With a few dietary changes, stress management, and a mild medication, he turned things around within a few months. But he looked at me afterward and said, "I wish I hadn't waited. I could have saved myself a year of worry." So, let me ask you, when was the last time you had your prostate checked? Not because something felt wrong, but because you wanted to stay well. If it's been more than a year, schedule that appointment. Your future self will thank you. And while getting checked is essential, what you put on your plate every day plays just as big a role, because the next habit involves something most of us grew up eating, yet it may be quietly fooling your prostate problems meal after meal. Let's talk about that next. Habit number 3, eating too much red and processed meat. I remember a man named Joe, 70 years old, a retired Navy veteran and proud Texan. He came to see me after struggling for months with interrupted sleep, a sluggish urine stream, and growing discomfort in his lower pelvis. We reviewed his lifestyle, and when we got to his diet, he chuckled and said, "Doc, I'm a steak guy. Always have been. Nothing beats a good ribeye." I smiled because I hear that a lot, and believe me, I get it. There's something deeply satisfying about a hearty, meat-centered meal. It's part of the culture, the routine, and even the reward after a long day. But what most men don't know is that a diet heavy in red and processed meats, things like bacon, sausage, deli cuts, and yes, those thick steaks can quietly fuel the very inflammation that's making their prostate problems worse. These meats are packed with saturated fats, preservatives, and chemicals that, over time, lead to chronic low-grade inflammation throughout the body. And when your prostate is already enlarged or sensitive, that inflammation acts like gasoline on a fire. It contributes to swelling, hormonal imbalance, and increased urinary symptoms, especially in men whose digestion and metabolism may have slowed with age. Beyond that, regular consumption of red and processed meat has been linked in multiple studies to a higher risk of developing more serious prostate conditions, including cancer. I'm not saying this to scare you. I'm saying it because it's preventable. The food you eat every day is one of the most powerful tools you have. It can either fight inflammation or feed it. When I suggested Joe cut back on red meat to just once or twice a week and experiment with lean proteins like chicken, fish, beans, and lentils, he wasn't thrilled at first. But after a few weeks, he came back with a different tone. "I didn't realize how heavy I'd been feeling until I stopped," he said. "My stomach's calmer, I'm sleeping better, and I don't miss the meat as much as I thought I would." You don't have to give it up completely. Just bring more balance to your plate. Focus on whole, unprocessed foods, what comes from the earth, not from a factory. Your prostate will notice the difference far sooner than you think. Now, while food is a major player in your prostate health, there's another force working against you that isn't in your kitchen. It's sitting just below your belt line. And believe me, what's happening around your waist might be doing more damage than you realize. Let's get into it. Habit number 2, belly fat and obesity. I had a patient once named Leonard. He was 64, soft-spoken, and always tried to keep a good sense of humor, even when his symptoms were frustrating. He sat down in my office and said, "Doc, I know I've put on some weight around the middle, but how much harm can a belly really do?" I looked him in the eye and gently replied, "More than you think, Leonard, especially for your prostate. Excess belly fat isn't just extra weight, it's metabolically active tissue that sends powerful hormonal and inflammatory signals throughout your body. This kind of fat, especially around the waist, isn't just sitting there quietly, it's working against you. It converts your valuable testosterone into estrogen, which can directly contribute to the growth of prostate tissue. And as estrogen increases and testosterone falls, the prostate begins to enlarge, leading to more frequent urination, weak flow, and that persistent feeling of pressure. But it doesn't stop there. Belly fat also produces chemicals that promote inflammation, strain your cardiovascular system, and make it harder for your body to regulate blood sugar and blood flow, both of which are critical for overall vitality and sexual health. So, while it may seem like a cosmetic issue, that expanding waistline can actually signal a deeper internal imbalance. The good news is that you don't need to lose 30 or 40 pounds to see results. Studies show that even a modest 5% reduction in body weight can have the noticeable impact on prostate symptoms. And the path doesn't have to be overwhelming. For Leonard, it started with simple changes. A short walk in the morning, swapping sugary drinks for water, and adding one extra serving of vegetables to dinner each night. In just a few weeks, he noticed he wasn't waking up as often at night and felt more energized during the day. He told me, "It's not just my prostate. It feels like I'm getting a piece of myself back." The truth is, your waistline tells a brute story. And when you take steps to reclaim it, you're doing far more than losing inches. You're restoring balance where it matters most. But there's still one more habit we need to talk about. It's not something you eat, drink, or do. It's something you live with. And for many men, it's the hidden force driving all the others. It's the silent saboteur of your health. And it's time we name it. Let's talk about it next. Habit number 1, chronic, uncontrolled stress. Of all the things we've talked about, your diet, your habits, your daily routines, this is the one most men overlook, a powerful force that affects your prostate health. I've had patients sit across from me well-dressed, polite, calm on the outside, but carrying the weight of decades on the inside. One man in particular, Richard, told me, "Doc, I'm not the kind of guy who talks about stress. I just keep moving." And I nodded because I know that story too well. Men, especially those over 60, were raised to keep it all together, to be the rock, to tough it out. But what we now understand medically and emotionally is that chronic stress doesn't just live in your mind. It lives in your body and your prostate. It feels it. When you're under constant stress, your body produces elevated levels of cortisol, the stress hormone. Cortisol fuels inflammation, tightens the pelvic floor muscles, disrupts hormone production, and interferes with sleep. Over time, it lowers your testosterone levels and increases your sensitivity to pain and pressure in the pelvic region. This creates the perfect storm for prostate problems to develop and persist. You may find yourself clenching your abdomen without realizing it or tossing and turning at night, unable to relax. Perhaps your patience is shorter, your energy lower, and your motivation diminished. These are all signs that stress is quietly wearing you down from the inside. Richard eventually opened up about the pressure he felt from worrying about his family, his finances, and his purpose now that he had retired. That's when we began to rebuild, not with medication, but with intention. 10 minutes a day of deep breathing, a walk at sunrise, journaling once a week, connecting with friends, and perhaps most importantly, giving himself permission to rest without guilt. Within weeks, his symptoms began to ease. He started sleeping better. His urinary urgency decreased, and he told me, "I didn't realize how much I was holding in until I let it go." Managing stress isn't a weakness. It's strategy. It's leadership over your own health. And it just might be the foundation that makes every other habit easier to change. So, now we've uncovered all 10 habits, some obvious and some hidden, that silently fuel prostate enlargement and discomfort. But don't let this overwhelm you, because in the closing moments of this video, I want to share something that ties it all together. A simple, nightly ritual that takes just 15 seconds, yet has changed everything for so many of my patients. Let's wrap this up together. Conclusion: you are not broken. You're just uninformed. Over the years, I've sat across from hundreds of men just like you, frustrated, exhausted, and silently worried about what's happening to their bodies. Some feel embarrassed, some feel angry, and most feel alone. After hearing their stories, I can tell you this with complete certainty: you are not broken. You're not weak. You're simply operating without the full picture. Now that you have it, everything can change. We've walked through the 10 most common habits that slowly inflame the prostate: cutting back on water, sitting too long, consuming too much caffeine, eating processed foods, ignoring nature's call, exposure to smoke, skipping checkups, red meat overload, belly fat, and chronic stress. Each of these might seem small in isolation, but when stacked together day after day, they quietly create the perfect environment for your prostate to swell, your sleep to suffer, and your sense of control to slip away. But here's the part I want you to hear louder than anything else I've said: you have the power to reverse course, and it doesn't take radical change. It takes awareness, small, intentional steps taken consistently, listening to your body instead of overriding it, and treating yourself with the same care and urgency you'd offer to someone you love. You see, most men wait until they hit a wall, until they're waking up 5 times a night, until intimacy starts to fade, and until the medications start stacking up. But what if you didn't wait? What if starting tonight, you gave your body the tools it's been quietly begging for? One of the most effective tools I've discovered. What I call the 15-second bedtime ritual is something I have given to my patients. It's simple, safe, and backed by the same principles we've talked about today: reducing pressure, calming the nervous system, and supporting the bladder and prostate while you sleep. Men who do this nightly have told me they wake up less, sleep deeper, and finally feel in control again. The best part is that anyone can do it starting tonight. So, here's what I encourage you to do. Go back through the habits we discussed, choose one that feels doable, and start there. Don't chase perfection, chase progress. You're not too old, and it's not too late. Your prostate is listening, and now you have a voice that knows what to say. You've made it this far, which tells me you're ready. Let's move forward together. If this video helped you, even in a small way, please take a moment to like it. It lets me know that this content is making a difference. Share it with a friend, a brother, or someone you care about who might be silently struggling. I'd love to hear from you, so drop a comment below and let me know which habit resonated with you. Your voice matters. If you'd like to support the channel and help us reach more men over 60 with life-changing health advice, consider making a small donation. Every bit helps us create more content just for you. Thank you for being here.